gonna try and fit this video in between periods real quick, and it's a half day, so let's go. I'm gonna try something new, and so if you watch my content, a lot of my content is sort of longer form. I'm gonna try and do like some shorter videos where I just wanna like knock out some questions that people give us, because, you know, just like in class, I feel like if one kid has a question, I assume that about 80 to 90% of the class has that question as well. So if you have questions, you can go ahead and like tweet them or DM them or leave them in a message or a comment below, and I'll try to address those. If I think that it's something that like I'm getting from more than one person, I'm gonna address those. One of the questions I get a lot is, how do I create relationships with students? And I just wanna knock that out I have like four ideas that I'm throwing out there. This isn't a comprehensive list. This isn't everything that you could do. This is a couple of things that I'm just thinking about that could help you to get started on this, or to maybe inform your practice. I'm not a counselor. I didn't go to school for mentoring or therapy or anything like that. But like all the other stuff that I know, it's just stuff that I've learned along the way and has worked with me. So I will say, all right, my camera is having issues, so let's do this on my phone. So I will say on the front end that I feel like my whole life I've been able to connect with students in a way, or kids in a way that like just kind of came naturally to me. And so I think that gives me an advantage in life, and so many of you might connect with kids very naturally and be able to talk to students, and it doesn't have to be forced, or it's not something that has to be practiced so much. It just kind of comes easy to you. And others may not. Maybe it's a struggle for you. Maybe you are all about the content and that comes easier for you. Implementing lessons or helping kids connect to the content comes really easy for you, but it's the connection piece that's difficult for you. So that's all I really wanted to speak to, and just give you like 4 kind of quick-ish ideas on how I do that. So the first thing is create a space. Whenever you're talking to a kid, you know, you want to make sure that you're somewhere where they are feeling comfortable, where they are feeling like it's private enough to have a conversation, that they can share what's going on with you and that you can listen to them. If you're somewhere where there's a ton of distractions going on, or that people are going to jump into the middle of your conversation and ask you a quick question, you're not creating that safe environment. So you want to create a safe place. My room looks the way that it does because I want to create a space where, in part, makes kids feel comfortable, makes them feel like they want to be there. Every time I have a conversation with a student, I sit right at my desk in the back, and then I have a seat right in front of there, which is a really uncomfortable seat. I should probably fix that. It's just a space where the kids know, you know, this is where I sit typically when I talk to students. The good part of that also is, when other students come into my room to just talk about anything, to say hello, to see what's going on, they know that when Reynolds is sitting at his desk, they can kind of gauge the scene. Like, they see me talking to someone, and a lot of times I'll get like are you talking to somebody right now? Or is this a good time? Or should I come back? Yes. I've created this visual that like, if you see me in this situation, you know something's going down and you should come back later. And another thing that I'll do, because sometimes children don't think first. I know this is a wild idea. Sometimes kids don't think before they act. And they'll just burst in and like ask me a question about an assignment when I'm in the middle of something really deep with another student. And I'll often get like a trusted buffer, someone that I think the kids listen to, someone that is gentle enough in how they speak, someone that isn't afraid to talk to other people, and they will sit somewhere in this area right over here. And their job is to simply just say like, hey, Reynolds needs a minute, come back. He's talking to a student and he wanted me to just tell everyone that. And that really helps, because then I don't have to take time out to speak and send someone off. I have a buffer to do it for me already. So if you don't have your own classroom, or you don't have that kind of set up, step into the hallway with the student if you want to have a conversation real quick. Find a corner in the room, find an empty classroom, go outside and sit on the steps or something like that. Again, you're really just trying to create that space where like kids feel comfortable, you know? That's why nobody has therapy on the subway. Maybe they do, I don't know. It's probably a cheaper option. Numero dos, I would say listening is the next biggest thing. But when you listen, you don't want to listen while thinking about what you want to say next. You don't want to listen and make all the points in your head of all the stuff you want to say. Your advice is not as important as your attention is. Students need that. Kids need someone that's just going to hear them out, that's not going to judge them, it's not going to just try and like advice down their throat or like fix the situation. If there's anything I've learned from being married for so long to the same woman, it is, I've been with my wife for 22 years at this point, and if there's anything that I've learned, it's just listening is really, really appreciated sometimes without a thought of trying to fix it, trying to put a band-aid on something, trying to make it all better. Just listen to kids. If you think about it, the kids in your class that are always touching someone else, always throwing something, always inserting themselves into conversations that have nothing to do with them. Recently, I had a conversation with a student that I just could tell was starved for attention. And I just, instead of yelling at him, instead of giving him attention, I just decided to give him more attention, like when it was necessary and when it was appropriate, right? So I won't stop the class for you, but what I will do is make sure that I check in with you at lunch. Make sure that tomorrow when you come into school, I'm gonna find out who your homeroom teacher is, and I'm gonna go into your homeroom and I'm just gonna have like a 3-minute conversation. Like, hey man, how's it going? I just noticed that like I haven't had a chance to talk to you very much lately, or that I don't know much about you and I'd really like to be able to know about you, and just ask some simple questions like, what'd you do this weekend? How's your school year going? You know, let them know that your classroom is a safe place and that if they ever need someone, they can come and talk to you. Giving kids the attention that they need is like, I just feel like a lot of students are starved for that, not all of them. And that if you give them the attention that they need, that there's a chance that they'll stop doing the things that they're doing in class to try and gain attention from the other students or from anyone that will give it to them. Now, one quick caveat on this is some students can be like black holes of attention, right? Everyone, I mean, you have these friends growing up, right? That like no matter how much attention you give someone or something, they just gobble it all up. Kind of like that scene in Spirited Away. If you don't know what I'm talking about with that, or if you've not seen that movie, you should do yourself a favor and watch it, because that's like one of my favorite scenes in all of movie history. Knowing when to stop giving someone that amount of it, like stop gobbling up all the attention is important too. And the way that I do that is I just give other things my attention. On Teacher Talk Live the other week, I'm gonna put the link right here, because my friend Rafe was talking about how there's 3 different types of students. There's the student that will teach themselves and you don't really need to even be there most of the time. There's the student that requires an insane amount of attention. And then there's the middle of the road student. And that student doesn't get as much attention. And so I just turn my attention to that student instead. And if you're still crying out for attention, maybe that needs to be a different conversation with you, but where we talk about limits and we talk about healthy behavior and what's appropriate and what's inappropriate, just turn your attention to something else. Most kids will get the signal from that. My third bit of advice is I try to out-vulnerable the students. And I realize that is a ridiculous term, and I'm not even sure it's a real term in the English language. What that means is if you want kids to share, if you want kids to tell you what's going on, if you want kids to let you know what has them so upset, you have to be willing to share things about yourself as well. And you know, of course you want to be careful with this, right? You don't want to like overshare. You don't want to come in and tell them all about the problems you're having with your boyfriend or your wife or something like that. But if I know that a student has trouble, maybe they have ADHD and your son or daughter has ADHD, or your little brother growing up had ADHD, you can share that and say, maybe I don't know exactly what it's like to be in your predicament, but I know people that have struggled with that too. And I just want to say that, you know, I have empathy for you. And kids, sometimes, it's like when Brene Brown says, like, the difference between being sympathetic for someone and saying like, oh, I'm really sorry that you feel that way. Being empathetic with someone is getting down in the muck with them. Sometimes people just want you to sit down in the mud and in the dirt with them and not be afraid to get dirty. It means you're not afraid to just be sad. Even if you're having a great day, even if you're feeling like you're on fire and a kid's feeling like they're sitting down in the mud, get down in the mud with them. And that shows kids that you're not afraid to go to that place. It shows them that it's a healthy thing, that they can feel like that, and that it's okay because someone is going to connect with them on that level anyway. They don't have to feel like they have to wear a mask that day. Some ways that you can do that is sharing a bit of your story. So if I know if someone had someone that died, I can share a little bit of my story maybe and say, you know, that's how I felt when my father died, or, you know, when I was 15, I lost my grandfather and he was a really big, important part of my life. And what you'll see happen sometimes is that a couple of things. One, kids just feel like they're not alone anymore, and that's huge. The second thing is they'll feel like maybe they can share some of their story too. Like, you're being vulnerable, you're sharing out what you feel inside or what your experience has been, and now maybe they feel safe about doing that as well. You know, I had a student years ago that came into class every day. He was a freshman, just wrote on his notebook was miserable, didn't talk to anyone. I've shared this story before if you watch any of my videos, but this kid came in every day and wouldn't do any work. He was nasty to everyone. He was like not getting in trouble, but was just like the most unpleasant person you could be around. And so I gave him detention for a week. He had to eat lunch with me every single day. That was his detention. And every one of those days, my wife packed him a lunch and she wrote his name on the front, and then she put a little note on the inside so that every day when he got the lunch, he had something to eat. We were talking about things, and that was his detention. His detention was to talk to me for the next 4 to 5 days. The effect that had was it gave that student an opportunity to get some of that stuff out. The things that we feel, if we keep them inside, they become toxic. I'm not a therapist. I'm not some sort of like counselor or anything. I just know what I know because of what I've seen in the classroom. And I know that if you give kids an opportunity to share that stuff and you give them a time and a place to do that, those thoughts and feelings don't hold them prisoner anymore. They have a place to let it out, and then they can do what they need to do to be successful in class. After that week, I mean, I've been tight with that kid for years now, just off that one experience. That's what I attribute it to, is just giving him detention where he had to eat lunch with me every day, and I would just ask him about himself. The last thing I want to say real quick, number 4, is let kids feel seen. Many of us in high school, myself included, I flew under the radar. I wasn't a good kid. I was a good enough kid. I got good enough grades. I never got in trouble. That leads to feeling completely invisible sometimes. We're like, no one is caring about what's going on with you. And as teachers, we should be the teachers that we always wanted, or the teachers that we always needed. And if you needed someone to see you because you felt invisible, just go find those kids. They're everywhere. There are kids flying under the radar every single day that feel completely invisible. And then, sometimes they end up doing drastic things to themselves or to others because they just don't feel like anyone cares otherwise. Just putting a hand on someone's shoulder, just saying good morning to them, just shaking their hands at the door and saying, hey, I'm really glad that you're here today. Standing in the hallway at the end of the day and sending kids off and saying goodbye. And even if you say something stupid, like a lot of times I tell kids, like, make sure you make bad choices and get in trouble this evening. It catches them off guard, and now they can like leave the building with a laugh. Buy a kid lunch. Hey, what's up? I'm trying to make YouTube videos over here. Catching me in the middle of my situation here. If kids are more private, you could write them a card, or you could put a note on their desk, or just give somebody a hug in the hallway and bother them like that way. That goes a long, long way. But now Cameron's in here. He needs help with something. So I'm gonna end it there. If you have ways that you do this in your classroom and you think that it would benefit the rest of the community, go ahead and leave them in the comment section below. I'd love to hear about them. I love hearing people's new ideas and stuff like that. And I get it. I get that not everyone is the same personality. So maybe someone is closer to your personality and you leave something below, and then that gives them power in the classroom and a chance to kind of help somebody out. So that's it, guys. Thanks. Peace. I just want everyone to know that I had to end that video early because Cameron's zipper on his book bag broke and he needed it fixed. So I hope I got everything said. And if I didn't, it was Cameron's fault. But Cameron was the first kid in our school to get accepted into college this year, so good work.